Well, hey, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to Collider Mailbag, the all-mailbag show here on Collider Video, where all we do is take your mailbag questions. My name is John Campy. I'm the senior producer here, and we hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. It is still the holidays, but still we wanted to bring you mailbag here for the weekend for this Saturday episode. And listen, for those of you who don't know what mailbag is, simply a more laid-back, relaxed version of movie talk, I guess, but instead of covering news stories, we just cover the emails you guys send into us. And how do you send us an email? Simple. You email us at collidervideo@gmail.com. Send on in your questions. Maybe you'll get lucky. You'll see it pop up on Movie Talk Monday through Friday, or maybe you'll see it pop up here on Mailbag on the weekends. Joining me, of course, as my co-host today is the wonderful Wendy Lee. Wendy, thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me, and happy holidays, guys.
Yay! All right, so I said we're going to be taking your mailbag questions, so we're going to hop right to it. So Wendy, what's the first up?
All right, here we go. First up is James Mckenzie, who writes, I'm a big fan of the show. My question is WB really doing such a terrible job with the DCU? For example, BvS. People hate on its casting, people hate on its trailer and marketing. I love what WB has done with BvS so far. I feel it has become a fashionable thing or a trend to hate on BvS now. It doesn't seem fair.
And of course with BvS, he's returning to Batman versus Superman. No, I don't think Warner Brothers has done all that bad of a job with marketing Batman versus Superman. Okay, look, when something's fair, you can't say it's being treated unfairly. Look, when they announced Ben Affleck's casting, I was one of the few people on the planet that said, this is genius. Actually, me and John Schnepp thought it was genius. We got on and we did a special episode that evening about how we thought the casting of Ben Affleck was a genius choice. And I still believe that. I think he's going to be a great Batman. And now that we've heard his Batman voice, I love Ben Affleck's Batman voice. I think it sounds great. But you can understand, well, I totally disagreed with everybody who said, oh, he's going to be a bad Batman. Well, I totally disagreed. You can still see why somebody would feel that way. Because if all they do is think about Ben Affleck films from 10 years ago or more, where there's Geely or whatever else, then you can say, okay, yeah, he had a couple of poor outings 10 years ago. So you could kind of understand why they would have a hesitation about Ben Affleck coming in and being the new Batman. Now, I usually found that people who felt that way never bothered to see him in The Town. They never bothered to see him in Argo. They never bothered to see him in Changing Lanes. They never bothered to see all these really strong, solid, great performances he gave in the past 10 years. You know, a lot of people believe that because, you know, Ben Affleck is considered right now to be one of the hottest directors in Hollywood right now. And there are a lot of people who think that, you know, him getting behind the camera to start directing has really increased his acting ability as well, because now he has a better appreciation for both sides of that, you know? So I don't think people were being unfair by criticizing it. I think they were wrong, but I don't think they were being unfair. And, you know, beyond just Ben Affleck being cast as that, you know, you didn't hear anybody complaining about Jeremy Irons casting as Alfred. You know, obviously nobody's complaining about Henry Cavill, who did a great job as Superman and Man of Steel, coming back. There was criticism, I'm one of them, about the Gal Gadot casting, but once again, like the Ben Affleck thing, that's totally fair to criticize that. You're talking about bringing in an actress who hasn't even, we're not talking about inexperience, we're talking about somebody who hasn't even been in the art of acting very long, has had very, very tiny spots, not impressive in the spots she's been in. So you can understand that that was fair criticism. Just like, you know, even though I'm totally for Ben Affleck as Batman, the criticism was fair, even though I disagree with it. And you can be somebody who disagrees with the criticism about Gal Gadot being cast, but it's fair criticism, you know? And, you know, look, when the first trailer came out at Comic-Con, it floored everybody. Everybody loved that trailer because it deserved to be praised. Because it, in my opinion, best trailer of 2015. Better than any Star Wars trailer, better than any Captain America Civil War trailer. I believe that Batman v Superman trailer from Comic-Con is the best trailer of the year. That being said, the most recent trailer that gave us Doomsday and showed Batman and Superman standing side by side, not a good trailer. It wasn't. So you got to call it like it is. You know, so when people feel that that wasn't a good trailer, to call it out for that is not unfair. So I think overall, Warner Brothers has done actually a very good job marketing this film so far. I think the first teaser that came out was great. I think the Comic-Con trailer was the best trailer of the year. I think a couple of their TV spots have been very nice to put together. And then they swung and missed on one, the most recent trailer. So I don't think people are being unfair. I think they're criticizing what deserves some criticism, but I really don't feel that people are being overly negative. I still hear a lot of positive about Batman v Superman. I know I personally feel a lot of positive about Batman v Superman. So I think it might be a case that really hardcore fans, DC fanboy fans, are just being a little bit sensitive to, I'm one of the biggest defenders of Batman vs. Superman in the world. But even me, the guy who says Man of Steel is a masterpiece, me, the guy who says Batman v Superman Comic-Con trailer is the best trailer of the year, when I say, hey, the last trailer kind of dropped the ball, it was a bad trailer, I get oversensitive DC fanboys coming out of Warburg. You hate DC! How dare you say something bad? That means you hate it. No, man, I'm still looking forward to it. I'm loving it, but I'm just calling it like I see it. So in this whole thing about people are being unfair to Batman v Superman, I don't think so. I've seen people be very, very excited about it. It's very high on a lot of people's radar. It's getting a ton of buzz, and it's doing some things that are understandable, that is making some people concerned, and they're voicing it. That is not unfair. That's not people being overcritical. That's just people being honest.
I mean, I get what you're saying too, and I completely agree with you. I don't think people are being overly negative. I think they have a right to, dislike what they dislike. But I feel like too, these two superheroes are very important to a lot of people.
Huge.
So I wonder if in their heads they're already comparing the movie to the Frank Miller comic book, The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I mean, there's some. I'm sure, and that's natural. I mean, you got to get yourself out of that headspace because while this is influenced and inspired by the Miller novel, absolutely it is not the Miller novel. Mm-hmm. So I think you don't want to set yourself up for disappointment that way because they're going to do something different and hopefully better, like even better. So let's keep our fingers crossed. All right, what's next?
Vasu Patel writes, "Hey Collider Movie Talk, big fan of yours and watch your show every day.
Thank you.
Now I know you guys think the new BvS trailer revealed too much, but the production designer, I guess, revealed a few spoilers for the film in an interview. He said, Doomsday isn't just the final act. And then he said, those feeling they may know too much this early are going to be in for a true surprise. Now, does this lessen your worries that the trailer revealed too much? I noticed you guys never talked about this news. That's why I was wondering. Thank you and keep up the good work."
Because we were never worried that the trailer showed too much. I mentioned this, I think the other day on Movie Talk. The problem that I know a lot of people, and I know myself and like Schnepp and Christian have had with that second Batman vs. Superman trailer is not that it showed too much. It's that they showed the wrong thing. It's not like they went in and they showed us all these things and every single plot point, blah, blah. No. I was never worried that they showed us too much. I was concerned that the one thing they shouldn't have showed us, they showed us. And that was Batman and Superman standing side by side, getting to fight a common threat. The name of the movie starts with Batman versus Superman. What made that first trailer the best trailer of the year was it was giving us what we wanted. Batman versus Superman. I get all these crybabies writing to me, "Oh, John, it's called Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, so they should show us more." No, I understand the name of the movie is Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. What does it start with? Batman versus Superman. What did that first trailer give us? Batman versus Superman. What got everybody on the planet excited? Batman versus Superman. We know it's also called Dawn of Justice. We know that by the end of this film, the two of them are going to team up. We know Wonder Woman is in the film. We know that at some points we're going to at least get at the very least, the seeds to lead us into Justice League. We know that. But it doesn't mean you have to show it to us. It doesn't mean you have to now take us to that moment in the film and show us that. We know it's coming, but don't show it to us. So far in the marketing campaign, I think this is the one thing that Warner Brothers has done wrong in the marketing campaign because everything else has been a brilliant marketing strategy. Everything else that has been building up this height has been the promise of Batman versus Superman. Even Lex Luthor saying it's the son of Krypton versus the Gotham Knight or whatever words he uses. That is what this is built on. That's what we are going to see. That is what we are excited for. And we know how it ends. We know in the end, Titanic sinks. We know, but you don't show us the boat sinking in the trailer, you know? We know that Abraham Lincoln gets assassinated, but you don't show us the trailer for Lincoln with, Booth coming up behind him and shooting him in the head. That's not what you do. And I think that is a mistake that they made. And so it's never been an issue that they showed us too much. Let me emphasize it again. We don't think they showed us too much. We just think they showed us the wrong thing. That was their big gaffe. And if I had to guess, I would think that in their forthcoming trailers, they'll go back to what was getting everybody excited, which is the Batman versus Superman aspect of this, because that's your moneymaker. And I think they're going to go back to it.
Another thing I wanted to ask you was that a lot of people are complaining that they're seeing Wonder Woman also in the second trailer. So I kind of don't understand why everybody is making a big deal out of it, because we saw her in the first one. We know that she's going to be in it.
Yep.
Is it because she's kind of standing with Batman and Superman? That's why everybody's like really mad about
I
seeing
think,
her?
yeah, it goes to the same point that it's like, we know Wonder Woman's going to be in the film. You showed her to us in the greatest trailer of the year already. But you showed us the resolution of Batman versus Superman. Batman and Superman side by side with Wonder Woman. Who's she? I thought she was with you. I thought she was with you. You don't show us that part. Come on. You leave that part for us to see in the movie for the first time. That's not the part you show us. So, don't complain that we're seeing Wonder Woman in it, because we saw her in the last one. It's fine that we see snippets of Wonder Woman. We just didn't want to see her in that shot. We didn't want to see any of them in that shot for that matter. So I think that's really the heart of a lot of people's complaints. All right, what's next?
Emil Johansson writes, do you think that the Inhumans movie will focus on characters similar to the comics, or will they do something new and original with Vin Diesel? For example, the royal family all have interesting abilities, but on the screen it might come off as cheesy and stereotypical. So maybe they'll do something different, more appealing to broader audiences?
I think it's going to be a mixture of things. Now, this is all speculation on my part. I don't have any insider information on this at all. What we do know, look, it's practically a given at this point that Vin Diesel is going to be Black Bolt. He's pretty much said it in not so many words that he's going to be Black Bolt. And the concept of him playing Black Bolt is a fascinating one. But just because they use him as Black Bolt doesn't necessarily mean they're going to use all the other characters as well. I think there's a strong possibility that they may put their own new twist on thing. I think we might see characters that we haven't heard of before, because remember, with Inhumans, more than Guardians of the Galaxy, certainly more than the Avengers, certainly more than Captain America, the Inhumans are characters that the general movie-going audience has no knowledge of. The average movie-going audience today has no idea what Inhumans are, or who they are, or what their backstory is. That, I believe, gives Marvel a little bit more wiggle room to be creative and add their own new elements to the movie that maybe aren't in the comic book. So ultimately, what I think you're going to get is a little bit of mixture of what's in the comic. I think Vin Diesel is going to be Black Bolt, and things that aren't in the comic, brand new characters that they're going to create for their story.
No, let me ask you this. Let's just assume that Vin Diesel is going to be Black Bolt. I feel like naturally maybe he'll bring the character Medusa.
Yeah, there are some natural ones that you can, and there's going to be ones that fans of the comic series will say, well, if you're going to do this, you got to do this. And there's going to be a couple of them that they'll be right about. Then again, you can't be purist. If we've learned anything from the Marvel Cinematic Films, you cannot be purist when it comes to the comic books. Marvel is going to take this stuff and they're going to run with it in which way they see fit that will make the best movie. And it's good that they do that because they've had a great track record. But even then, saying that, there are going to be a couple of staples that even if you want to do new things, there are going to be a couple staples you got to draw some new things from, or you got to draw some established things from. So people who would say that, I would actually kind of agree with them.
And then just to the point of the, is it Emil who asked the question about a bit cheesy? I think we've kind of come out of the gate, or punching with Guardians of the Galaxy, because it was very different. It had slight cheesiness.
Even before
so I think,
Guardians of the Galaxy.
I think we're safe.
You got Captain America dude with a big A on his forehead. I mean, come on. I mean, we're past cheesy. Let's not worry about cheesy. That doesn't mean you get into the flat out silly. And yes, if you know the comics, some of the Inhumans you just can't use because it will be ridiculous. But I think for the most part, they'll be okay. All right, what's next?
Jeff Forkins writes, hey guys, so let's get straight to the question. Have you heard any news on the Blue Mountain State movie? They were doing a Kickstarter campaign and that was the last I heard of it. Thank you and keep being filthy.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, Blue Mountain State was a terrible TV show that rightfully got canceled. I mean, you know what? I've got some friends who are really big fans of the show, actually. And, you know, you're right. They did, I believe in 2013, I think they did a Kickstarter campaign. They wanted to raise $1.5 million to do a movie. They raised 1.9. In mid to late 2014, they pulled the director they were going to use and inserted a new director. And I believe in like December of 2014, they announced they were finished filming. And they said the movie was going to come out in like September of 2015. Well, here we are in December of 2015. I don't see a movie. So the last thing I heard is that they pushed the release of Blue Mountain State, the movie, to an unspecified date. I don't think the movie's going to see the light of day. I mean, at worst, the worst case scenario is the movie will probably get moved to a VOD, will pop up on Netflix. I mean, in some form, if you're looking forward to seeing Blue Mountain State, the movie, at some point you're going to get a chance to see it. I just don't think it's going to be in a theater near you. It'll probably be in your living room.
I did some investigating, and I found that Alan Ritchson, who was the lead, took to his Twitter and he said that they're done filming, like you said, and that the studio has the movie and has just done nothing with it. So do you think how true that is? Oh,
I think that's probably very accurate. I think which tells me they got it, and it probably looks like a $1.9 million movie, which is not a movie you release in theaters, probably. I think if they thought they had something special on their hands, they'd give it a release of some sort. Like I said, they're going to do something with it. Whether that means Netflix, whether that means a Hulu, whether that means hell, we'll just put it up on YouTube. I mean, you can do that. They can put it up on YouTube and charge you a rental fee on YouTube, so they could do that as well. So one way or the other, if you shoot a movie, it gets shot, it gets made, and you spend money on it, at some point you want to try to do something to recoup the costs. So I feel pretty good that if you're looking forward to a Blue Mountain State, I think people will get a chance to see it.
How often do you think something like this happens to a project?
All the time.
Oh.
All the time. Yeah, movies get made all the time with delusions of grandeur, and it's like, we're gonna make this movie and it'll be in 1,000 theaters across the country. And sometimes it happens, and more times than not, it does not happen. I'm absolutely, like a lot of these movies that you'll see on Netflix that, wait a minute, there's this movie with all these huge stars in it and I've never even heard of it, and now it's on Netflix. That's what happened. It's like a lot of times they probably shot that movie with every intention of it going to the big screen, and then no distributors wanted it. Or after they saw the completed the project, they thought, this probably won't do well in theaters. Let's not spend the $40 million it's going to take to get this ready for theatrical distribution, and then do all the marketing campaigns for it, and put it on so many screens. Let's save that $40 million, just put it out on home video. All right, what's next?
Gary Sanders writes, my question, like so many you've had before, deals with Marvel's movie rights. Although not who owns what, but rather why did Marvel agree to rights so terribly one-sided in favor of Fox and Sony? It seems if they wish to do so, those studios can keep those properties into perpetuity. Thanks, and may the nasty be with you.
Well, because, here's the thing. It's not really one-sided. They're very, very fair deals. Like, here's the thing. Spider-Man, let's take Fox and Fantastic Four. The rights to Fantastic Four got sold to Fox. So as long as every X number of years, and I'm not sure what the X is, but every X number of years, Fox has to be in production of a new Fantastic Four movie. And if they are, the clock resets and they keep the rights. And that goes in perpetuity. That goes on forever. Same thing with Spider-Man, same thing with most of the properties that they've, X-Men, I'm sure that's part of the deal as well. But that's not a one-sided deal, because built into that is a fairness thing. If Fox all of a sudden decides, we're not going to make any more Fantastic Four movies, and they just put the characters on the shelf, well, then it's in the contract that the rights will then go back to Marvel, because that's the only way to keep it fair. It's not fair that Marvel can't make Fantastic Four films because Fox have the rights, but Fox just has the characters on a shelf. That's not fair. The fact that there is a reclusion clause in there totally evens this out. That makes it fair. Because think of it this way. If you were Marvel, right, and I'm Fox, and you say to me, hey, you can have the rights to make the Fantastic Four movies. Pay us, $100 million or $50 million or however much money it was. And you say, but you only get the rights for 5 years. Do you think I'm going to buy those? Like, wait a minute. So you want me to pay you $100 million to have the rights to make a Fantastic Four movies that I'm going to pour hundreds of millions of dollars into, invest all types of marketing and branding and development and all that kind of stuff. But in 5 years, I don't get to reap the benefits of all that work. You just take it back. Get out of here. There's no way I'm going to make that deal. And you got to remember, when Marvel was selling off all the movie rights to all these characters, they were on the brink of bankruptcy. Like, they were strapped for cash. They needed money. And so they needed people to buy these rights. So, and it's the same thing with you. If you're Sony and I say to you, I'm Marvel, say, hey, you can have Spider-Man. Give me $90 million and you can have Spider-Man. You're going to look at the deal and say, wait a minute, it says you only get him for 5 years. Why would I want to put out a successful movie and not have the right to make a part 2 or a part 3 or a part 4? You just get it back? How does that, that would be a terrible deal. Nobody would buy the rights, because everything is franchised now. So they are fair deals. Marvel sells the production rights, and those people get to keep the rights as long as they keep making movies. And then as soon as they stop, those movies get to come back to Marvel. It's fair. And I'm sure, with each progressive movie, I'm sure Marvel gets a little bit of a kickback of that money too. That's why at the beginning of whether it's X-Men films or Spider-Man movies or Fantastic Four, you'll see the Marvel logo come up. So I'm sure they still get a little bit of a kick of that. So it's not as unfair of a deal as you might think it is.
I feel like after The Amazing Spider-Man 2, that's when Sony, not right after, but that's pretty much when Sony reached out to Disney, or some sort of deal happened, and now Marvel is going to be able to use Spider-Man in their next film. Do you think now, with the failure of Fantastic Four, Fox and Disney will reach some sort of contract that Marvel will be able to use?
No, I don't, because there are a few elements that went into the Sony Marvel deal that, a lot of times people don't talk about. The fact that Sony and many of its divisions was going bankrupt. There was even talk of Sony selling off their entire movie division because, they needed to raise capital. They wanted Spider-Man to be $1 billion film. Now, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a smash hit. A lot of people go, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was a bomb. No, it was a smash hit financially. It made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But it didn't make the money that Sony wanted it to make, or were counting on it making. Still made $600, $700 million, at the worldwide box office, but they were wanting a $1 billion movie. And I think they realized that they could probably make Spider-Man more profitable if they got him into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and were able to bring some Marvel characters into their Spider-Man standalone films. They thought that would make a good deal. Now, here's the big difference between the Spider-Man situation and the Fantastic Four situation. Spider-Man was still incredibly valuable. So to Marvel, there was a deal there that they wanted to make. Fantastic Four is not nearly as valuable as Spider-Man is. Not nearly as valuable. Because, number one, nobody ever read their comic book. At least not in the last 10 years. Nobody read Fantastic Four comic books. But on top of that, Fox has successfully driven the name of Fantastic Four into the dirt, putting out 3 terrible movies. So from that point of view, Marvel doesn't need him. Marvel wanted Spider-Man in their cinematic universe. They really wanted him there. I would stop short of saying they needed him. I don't think they needed Spider-Man, but they wanted him. I don't know that they want Fantastic Four. Plain and simple, I don't think they want them. And so on that level, I don't know that a similar deal that Sony and Marvel made, I don't think we're going to see Marvel and Fox make. Anything's possible.
Right.
It could totally happen. It's possible. I just think the likelihood of that is a lot less because the circumstances are a lot different and a lot less favorable than they were for Sony and Marvel at the time. All right, what's next?
Brandon Schurer writes, like everyone else, I saw The Force Awakens this past weekend 3 times and loved it. My question is, now that The Force Awakens has been released, how long do we have to wait for a Rogue One trailer as it is scheduled to come out in 2016? Thanks for all you guys do.
Well, I often will tell people, relax. Relax. The movie's still 8 months away. The movie's still 10 months away. In this case, the movie's still a year away. But the first teaser trailer for Star Wars The Force Awakens got released 1 year before The Force Awakens came out. It was last December that first teaser trailer came out that got us all excited. So my guess, and this is purely a guess, my guess is March. I'm going to take a wild guess at March that we're going to see the first Rogue One thing, because Disney also has a little bit of an uphill battle here they have to fight, because everybody knows what Star Wars is. But Rogue One is their first anthology film, right? So I don't know. Disney's going to have to make sure that they don't confuse the audience. That when they see the trailer, they don't go, wait a minute, where's Luke Skywalker? Wait a minute, where's Princess Leia? Where's that little round BB-8 droid we all like so much? So they might want to get ahead of it a little bit, to have a marketing campaign that might be a little bit longer than normal, to really make sure it's driven in about what Rogue One is. This isn't the next part to The Force Awakens. This is a story that takes place 30 or 40 years earlier, just before the events of Star Wars: A New Hope, the original Star Wars movie. So they might want to take a little bit extra time. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say I think March. I think March will be our first look at a trailer.
So let's just say it's in March. Do you think the trailer they come out with will be like the little teaser that everybody saw at Star Wars Celebration, or are they going to make a brand new one?
No, well, remember, the one we saw at Star Wars Celebration wasn't even stuff from the movie.
Right.
Because they hadn't even started shooting the movie when they showed us a teaser at Star Wars Celebration. So this will be, I'm going to guess, the first one we're going to see is probably about 90 seconds, as opposed to a full 2.5 minute trailer. Probably about a minute to a minute and a half. Introducing us to the concept and stuff like that. And then maybe in May, when Captain America Civil War comes out, maybe that's when they put out the first full trailer, will be in May. But I'm expecting, probably what we would call a teaser trailer will drop in March. All right, what's next?
Jesse Delman writes, hey Collider crew, I watched It's a Wonderful Life the other day, and I noticed there are no more recent remakes. Is It's a Wonderful Life one of those untouchable movies that shouldn't be remade because it is beloved by millions?
I don't, I'm the type of guy, and I talk about this a lot, where I'm personally, remake anything. It's fine. Remake Star Wars. I mean, don't remake Star Wars right now because you have Star Wars ongoing right now. So that doesn't make sense. But if Disney suddenly said, we're stopping making Star Wars after The Force Awakens, then I'd say, okay, cool. And then somebody else wanted to remake Star Wars, I'd be all for it. Remake The Godfather, because, you've heard me say this before. If the remake sucks, it doesn't matter because we still have the originals. The originals don't disappear, all right? With A Wonderful Life, if I was a studio, I'd be very hesitant to remake it for a couple of reasons. Number one, yes, because it is so beloved, but more importantly, because I feel like everybody's seen it. I mean, I feel like a movie becomes remakeable when there's a good amount of people out there haven't seen the original in the first place. So now let's remake it and introduce a whole new generation to this telling of the story. I have a feeling that even most kids have seen It's a Wonderful Life at some point. So I would personally lean away from it myself right now. At some point, somebody's going to remake It's a Wonderful Life. And that's fine, because if it's good, then we have a new holiday classic. If it's bad, who cares? We still have the original. Now, in 2013, it was announced that they were going to make a sequel to It's a Wonderful Life. I guess it's going to be one of the main character's grandchildren was going to be the main character now in a new film. And they said they were going to do it. It was going to go into production. They announced who the producers were, all that kind of stuff. This was all in 2013. They said it was going to come out in 2015. Here we are, 2015. It's coming to an end in a couple of days, and still no It's a New Wonderful Life. I think the project got canned. So I don't think that's coming, and I don't think anytime soon we're going to get a remake, but eventually at some point we will.
Now, I know you keep saying that they can remake any movie because if they suck, then you can have the original movie.
Still have the original.
So what is a movie to you that you would rather not see them remake, regardless of the fact that you still have the original?
Wow. Okay, so I would rather them not remake. I can't think of one.
Really? How about, okay, let me rephrase it then. How about one that they shouldn't remake because it just wouldn't work in a remake in today's society?
Oh, gosh. That it just wouldn't, Napoleon Dynamite probably wouldn't work all that well. I mean, there's probably many I can think of because that just wouldn't work. See, that's a different argument altogether.
Yeah.
When looking at, let's remake this, whether or not the remake would work or not work, that's a very valid question. There's probably a lot to that. I would have to think about it a little bit.
We'll get back to you.
All right, last question of the day.
All right, Kyle Godin writes, hey there. As I'm catching up on the movie talk episodes I missed last week due to fear of potential spoilers, I have a quick question about embargoes. If you break a studio-instituted embargo, what kind of ramifications do do they impose on you as members of the media? Thanks for keeping this teacher entertained while his students are at recess.
Yeah, so you've probably all heard the term embargo thrown around, embargo. This movie's under embargo, whatever. What does embargo mean? It simply means this. Let's say Wendy is a studio and she invites me to come to see her new movie, The Flower, okay? And she invites me to come see it, but she says, on the invitation, it says, please withhold all reviews until January 15th. Remember, reviews are under embargo until January 15th. An embargo simply means you can't talk about this movie until that date. And usually that date will be like a week before the movie comes out or something like that. That's them wanting to make sure spoilers get out. It's about the studios wanting to time their marketing and all that kind of stuff. It's all very strategic and everything and stuff like that. So by going to the screening, I am implying that I agree to the embargo. By accepting the invitation and on that invitation says, hey, this thing's under embargo, then I am basically de facto, I am agreeing to the embargo. Now, if I wanted to be a dick and I got home and say it's January 5th and you said on your invitation, embargo till January 15th. And I want to be a dick. I'm going to write my review right now and put it online. La, 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 la. And well, I mean, there's not a lot of ramifications that the studio can do to you except for one really big one. Now, some movies that they're really deadly serious on, they'll make you, I've had to actually go to movies where they've made me sign an agreement. That doesn't happen often. That's rare. Because then there could be legal ramifications. But basically, the main thing is this. If Wendy as a studio head invites me to see The Flower, and I agree to not post any reviews until January 15th, and I go ahead and run it on January 5th anyway, Wendy, as the studio head, is not going to invite me anymore to go to any press screenings. And if I'm a media professional in this industry, that will kill me. If I can suddenly no longer go and see these press screenings, then that is going to kill me and kill me professionally. So really the ramifications are, if your job is to review movies, guess what? You will no longer be able to review the movies until it comes out for everybody else to see. And that would be damaging. So that's really the main ramification.
So I'm still kind of new to the press screening and embargo stuff, even though, I mean, kind of used to it now, but you've been in this much longer. How far back do you think they started this embargo?
That's a great question. I mean, embargoes have been in place ever since I got into the business, which was like 13 years ago now, 12, 13 years ago. And I wouldn't doubt it. They started very early on in Hollywood history. It's a great history question. I'd have to look that up. But I'm pretty sure it probably goes back to the beginning of the era of popular movies and the media that covers them. Embargoes have probably been a part of the landscape. All right, folks, that'll do it for us for this installment of Mailbag. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to let you know tomorrow's Mailbag is actually kind of a special Mailbag. A lot of times we get a lot of behind-the-scenes questions about how does everything at Collider Video work, questions about how to do YouTube stuff, how to do podcasting, how does this work, how do you guys do this, this, and this. And so what we decided to do is tomorrow for Mailbag, it's going to be all behind the scenes, YouTube, podcasting, whatever, questions. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully you'll get a lot of that too. So make sure you come back and join us for that Mailbag tomorrow. I want to thank my co-host today, the lovely Wendy Lee. Wendy, where can people find you online?
Thanks for having me, and you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Wendy Lee Zaney.
And you can find me simply on Facebook and on Twitter, just at John Campea. I want to thank Jonathan and Dennis behind the cameras for all that they do. And thank you to you guys for joining us. Make sure you jump into the comment section and leave a thought on any or all the questions that we addressed here today. That'll do it for us, guys. Thanks for joining us. And until tomorrow, bye-bye.